I'm JasonUFC, and today we have a story about UFC middleweight contender Khamzat Chimaev is eyeing a return at UFC 308 in Abu Dhabi, and he wants a title shot. The next time Khamzat Chimaev steps into the UFC octagon, he wants gold on the line. The undefeated Khamzat Chimaev, 13-0 MMA, 7-0 in UFC, has not competed in the UFC since October 2023, last year at UFC 294, in a majority decision victory over former welterweight champion Kamaru Usman. Khamzat Chimaev is now eyeing a return to action later this year at UFC 308 in Abu Dhabi. This is what Khamzat Chimaev says. Most likely, my return will happen in October 2024 in Abu Dhabi, Khamzat Chimaev told Match TV in Russia. The opponent is unknown so far. I would like to fight for the title. I have 7 fights, 7 victories. There is no fighter in the UFC who has won 7 fights without fighting for the UFC championship belt. I am an MMA casual. I'm just going to come back to that stat. I just want to mention I'm a casual, so I don't know if that stat is true, but I'm going to have to come back to that one. Khamzat Chimaev was scheduled to compete against former UFC middleweight champion Robert Whittaker. He got injured there, forced to withdraw. And then I guess the problem has occurred on more than one occasion during his Khamzat Chimaev career and has concerned promotions CEO Dana White. Now, this is what Dana White says. Lately, it's been hard to get Khamzat Chimaev into the octagon. Dana White recently said on the Jim Rome show, every time Khamzat Chimaev gets close to fighting, Khamzat Chimaev gets really sick. I don't know what to say. It's not like Khamzat Chimaev is here in this country, America, and we, UFC, had doctors look at him or anything like that. Khamzat Chimaev sort of out of touch. It's tough to deal with. Wow, that's interesting. Okay, that's an interesting way. We're going to end the article right there. As I said, I do want to preface this by saying I am a MMA casual, so I can't remember. I don't follow every single tweet and every single record and quote who won every single fight. I can't remember all of this, but this is a very good stat that Khamzat Chimaev says, I have 7 fights, I have 7 victories. There's no fighter in the UFC who has 7 fights without fighting for the belt. 7 fights victory without fighting for the belt. Now, like I said, I'm a casual, so I can't guarantee that that's true, but from what I remember, wasn't Leon Edwards on like a very long win streak, right? Leon Edwards lost to Kamaru Usman in what, like 2017, 2016 or something like that. And he hasn't lost since then. So I don't know if that stat is true. I'm going to call a cap on that stat, but I am an MMA casual, so don't quote me on that. But that does lead me to my point of how arbitrary it is for the UFC championship. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with Khamzat Chimaev, saying he doesn't deserve a title championship match in his next match, but I don't disagree with what he's saying. 7 fights in the UFC, 7-0 in the UFC. You would think after that many victories you would be getting a title shot. You look at Stipe Miocic will be fighting John Jones in November for a title shot, and Stipe Miocic lost his last fight. His last fight was like 2-3 years ago against Francis Ngannou. He got knocked out cold in like the 2nd round or something. And now, on a losing streak after being out for 2 years, his next fight is for the championship. Now, Stipe Miocic, greatest heavyweight of all time, former UFC champion, yada, yada, yada. I still disagree that Stipe Miocic deserves a title shot in his next fight. Same thing with Israel Adesanya. You would see the same thing. Israel Adesanya, one of the greatest middleweight champions of all time, is on a losing streak. His last fight was versus Sean Strickland in Australia last September, and he lost that fight. But his next fight is going to be versus Dricus du Plessis for the championship. So y'all can't tell me, a UFC fighter being in a UFC saying, listen, I'm 7-0. Everyone I've faced in the UFC, I've defeated. why shouldn't my next fight be for the championship? So I agree with him on that fact, right? Now, listen, I don't think it's true that, there's this number 7-0, the next fight you have to be for a title fight. But, it is a good point. I think, a lot of the championship fights in the UFC are arbitrary. It's, it's not always, well, if the person you defeated in front of you was ranked higher than you in the rankings, that gets you a title shot. You look at Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier lost to Justin Gaethje, head kick, knocked out last year. Dustin Poirier's next fight is versus Benoit Saint-Denis. Benoit Saint-Denis was ranked 10 spots behind Dustin Poirier, right? Dustin Poirier beats an opponent ranked 10 spots behind him. In his next fight, he gets a title shot. Right, so listen, y'all can't tell me that, well, Khamzat Chimaev hasn't beat, the someone ranked higher than him, that gets him a title shot. Y'all can't tell me, Khamzat Chimaev winning 7 fights in a row, he doesn't deserve a title shot. Yet Israel Adesanya gets a title shot versus Dricus du Plessis because they have quote unquote beef. Stipe Miocic gets a title shot versus John Jones, even though his last fight, he got knocked out cold 2-3 years ago. So, like I said, it's arbitrary. I'm an MMA casual, so what the hell do I know, right? But I don't disagree with Khamzat Chimaev, but I would personally, there's a lot of ranked middleweights. I would love to see Khamzat Chimaev, get basically a number 1 contender fight, right? Versus Jack Hermanson, Jared Cannonier, Robert Whittaker, right? You have basically 2 number 1 contenders at the moment in the UFC middleweight division. You have Robert Whittaker, who lost to Dricus du Plessis, 2 losses to Israel Adesanya. You have Sean Strickland, right? Sean Strickland lost to Dricus du Plessis, but defeated Israel Adesanya. And then the field behind that is still wide open. So there's a lot of moving pieces in the next few months. We're gonna have to wait to see, does the UFC match Robert Whittaker versus Sean Strickland? I think Sean Strickland said he didn't want to take that fight or something like that. Or does Khamzat Chimaev face Robert Whittaker in Abu Dhabi? Does Khamzat Chimaev face a Sean Strickland in Abu Dhabi for the number 1 contender? Dricus du Plessis and Israel Adesanya, they fight in is that next month? Is this July? Is that next month already, right? So I would say a lot more will be decided then. That's when we're going to really figure out what's happening with the UFC middleweight division. Who will be Khamzat Chimaev next opponent? Will it be versus the champion? I doubt it. Will it be Robert Whittaker in Abu Dhabi? Will it be Sean Strickland in Abu Dhabi? We'll see. After the UFC middleweight champion Dricus du Plessis takes on Israel Adesanya, that's when we're going to get a lot of answers who's going to fight for the championship after that fight. But like I said, 2 number 1 contenders currently right now, Robert Whittaker, Sean Strickland, and then you have people like Khamzat Chimaev on the outside, maybe a fight or 2 away from a championship opportunity. But I am an MMA casual, so what the hell do I know? Let me know your opinion of this story. Who do you want to see Khamzat Chimaev fight next? That's basically all that matters. Like, if you disagree with him, wanting a title fight, that's fine. But, who do you want to see him fight? Or are you kind of like where Dana White is at? It's just like, maybe Khamzat Chimaev, instead of talking about fighting so much, start talking about retiring. Because like Dana White says, every time he gets close to fighting, he gets really sick, right? So maybe you're one of those saying, let's just focus more on Khamzat Chimaev's health before we talk about title shots. But let me know your opinion of this story. I'm Jason, UFC. Today we had a story about UFC middleweight contender. Khamzat Chimaev is eyeing a return at UFC 308 in Abu Dhabi, and he wants a UFC championship match. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the $1 donation button, and please tune in to the next video on this channel. Thanks a million for watching.